everybody, to the late night review. And tonight, I'm so happy to get to this one. You know how much I love Charles Bronson. It's Death Wish Part 2 with Charles Bronson. I really like this movie. And I go back and forth. Which one do I like the best between 1 and 2? I love all the Death Wish movies except for Part 5 with Charles Bronson. I wish that one would have never been made because the rest in the series are so good. And the remake with Bruce Willis was a good one. I like that one too with Bruce Willis. I thought that was really well done. The original's still my favorite, but that was really well done. And Bruce Willis, as always, he does a great job. And I think that the Death Wish series is such a solid series. I like I think I like part 2 a little bit better than part 1, but I love part 1. Sometimes I go back and forth. Sometimes I like the first one and the second. But if I didn't have except one choice out of all the Death Wish movies, part 2 I think would be my favorite. And the reason I say that is because in part 1, yes, he went out and he waited to be mugged by bad people so he can fight back and take them out. Um, but he never found the guys who did it. You know, he never found the original guys who attacked his family because he wasn't there. He wasn't a witness. He didn't see who did it. He goes out, has a gun, and goes after other bad guys and takes them out. But in this one, in part 2, he actually gets the Pacific people who did it because he was assaulted by them. He had a run in with them. They found out where he lived and they raped, I don't want to go over what they've done, but they raped and killed his housekeeper. They raped his daughter and she jumps out a window and she dies and commits suicide while trying to get away from them. Horrible, very disturbing. And you know why he goes out there to look for these scumbags. And he does, and he finds them. He goes into the house with his daughter, who's still messed up from the first movie. She survived a brutal attack and sexual assault, rape, and it gave her PTSD. Her mother was murdered in that movie, and um, it was a horrible experience, and so she's never been the same. She doesn't speak, and so Charles Bronson was out with her for the day, taking her out and showing her different things and having a nice day with her, along with Charles Bronson's fiancée, who's played by Jill Ireland, his real life wife, and they're in this movie together. And they come back. Jill Ireland leaves. Charles Bronson comes back home with his daughter to see what the housekeeper has cooked for dinner. They come in. The bad guys are still there. And Charles Bronson tries to fight, but there's too many of them, and they hit him over the back of the head, knock him out, kidnap the daughter, and then the horrible stuff happens. So he got to look at him this time. And so he goes out hunting them down. He finds them, kills them, take them out. Bye-bye. Good for him. So he finds out who they are. I mean, he remembers who they are. He finds out where they're at and takes them out. That's one of the things that I think I like about this movie a little bit more than the first one, is he gets the people who actually did it. Rather than going out and getting a whole bunch of other bad guys, he got the Pacific ones who attacked his family, raped and killed his daughter, and he takes them out. And this is an action-packed movie. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I grew up watching it. It was one of the pay channels that used to rerun it, and it was either HBO, Cinemax, or Showtime. When I was younger, my parents had all three, I believe. And then the VHS tape, it was rented many, many times, and I kept watching it over and over and over again until I got my own copy and watched it over and over again. Very good movie. Michael Winner directed this one, just like he directed the first one. And I believe he directs part 3 as well, which is another good movie. But part 2, and I like to do a review of that one day too, part 3 with Charles Bronson. Michael Winner is a really good director. He directed 1, 2, and 3. Not part 4, I don't think. But he directed part 2. Very good. It was a hit. It was another hit. It was a blockbuster. It revitalized Charles Bronson's career when he made Death Wish Part 2. I had heard, I don't know if maybe people probably know more about this than I do if they followed it more, but I think Charles Bronson got angry at Michael Winner because the rape scene in this film was too long, too brutal and too long. I think he did get upset with him, but I seen that once, I think, in a documentary or when I was online doing some research a while back. I think he did, but they're friends. But I think he complained because the rape scene was too brutal, too graphic, or too long. One of those three, or all of them. But anyway, Charles Bronson made this movie. It really revitalized his career. He's had so many good movies. He's one of my favorites of all time, and I've seen most of his movies. There's a couple movies that were not in the action realm that I don't think I'd seen. I know he did a TV show called Man with a Camera, and I never sat down to watch those. But I mean, I've seen so many of the Death Wish movies, Hard Times, Messenger of Death, which is actually a good movie. Different type, but it's a good movie. A little bit of a story and mystery there. I think he's an investigative reporter in that one. 10 to Midnight was really good. Mr. Majestic. There's the Stone Killer. There's so many. Death Wish 2 is probably my favorite Charles Bronson movie most of the time. I love The Mechanic. Uh, Maybe one day I'll do a Charles Bronson ranking, who knows. But Death Wish 2, filled with action. He knows who did it this time because he was a witness this time, and he was attacked by them himself. And he tried fighting, but he got hit from behind, got knocked out, and later woke up. But he goes after him in different locations. I believe he leaves his house and he goes to a bathroom somewhere, changes clothes so he looks different, changes in the bathroom at night, drives around somewhere, and he handles it pretty smooth. I mean, nowadays there's so many cameras and phones, and you got iPhones and there's cameras everywhere. A lot of this stuff couldn't be pulled off, especially the scene where he sneaks into the hospital later to go after one of the rapist murderers, who they figured, well, let's put him in a mental hospital. Rather than giving him what he deserved, the system put him in there. So Bronson goes there to solve the problem. And so anyway, there's certain parts that aren't realistic, especially nowadays with cameras everywhere, but it's a fun movie. It's a good movie. He goes out at night. He's got a different outfit. He's kind of undercover looking around to see if he can spot him, and he does. And one by one, he tracks them down. And yeah, this movie here, I think, is really good. If you like action, it definitely delivers. There's a great score by Jimmy Page in this movie. It's awesome. It really is awesome. At the beginning credits, it has Jimmy Page's music, the guitar. It is so good. It's available on YouTube also. Just type in Jimmy Page Death Wish 2 score, and you'll probably see multiple videos will come up. I like the ones where it's just instrumental, where it's just him playing. Those are the ones I prefer. But yeah, there's an awesome score from Jimmy Page at the beginning of this movie and throughout the movie. Really good. This movie is really awesome. It has a lot of good scenes in it, a lot of good action, drama. Charles Bronson, to me, just one of the greatest action stars of all time. People like him come along once every so often, just once in a blue moon, just very rare. He's a very rare person, and he passed away years and years ago. I felt really bad when that happened, and I watched more of his movies. He's always been an inspiration to me. He did the first Death Wish when he was 53 or 52, early 50s. I'd have to check again. So he's even older here. The first one came out, and he's got to be 60 something. I think he's 60 something in here, still in good shape. There's a fight scene in here where he fights a big guy, one of the guys who attacked him earlier, raped and killed his daughter. He finds him, fights him at the hospital. He sneaks in there posing as a doctor. They have a fight. Pretty realistic fight scene. There's maybe a couple things you can question, but pretty realistic. a lot more realistic than most of the fight scenes you'd see nowadays. And the guy has a knife. Charles Bronson takes some stabs and knees the guy, hits him with a left hook, and he's still in shape. He's in his 60s in here, I think, because to do the math, in 1974, the first one came out, and this one is 1984. I think it's 84, 85. 84 was a great year for movies, by the way. There's certain movies that came out then that, I mean, 84 was a good year, in my opinion, for movies. You got the first Terminator came out then. You have Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 that came out then. And, the list goes on. Maybe I'll talk about that, 1984. In the movie 1984, George Orwell, that with John Hurt. I think it was John Hurt. And yeah, that was a good movie. Richard Burton was in there. It's been a while since I've seen it, but that came out in 1984, dark classic. Let's get back to Death Wish 2, but this is one of my all-time favorite movies. When it comes to action movies, I can't think of a movie that I like better just because of the nostalgia. And it's well done. And it's right up there in my Mount Rushmore of action movies. I will go that far. And it's either tied with a whole bunch of other ones that I love, or it's near the top. Mount Rushmore. I think you can have ties on Mount Rushmore, can't you? Can't there be equals? But anyway, there's certain movies in music, it goes to music too. There's certain songs, there's like 20 songs from the 80s that I absolutely love, and I like them all almost equally. And then as far as movies go, there's like 20 movies, or give or take, that I like all equally, and to do a rating would be difficult. There's certain movies that I like about the same because I recognize, this movie might be different from that one, but they're different in their own way and they're still great. I would just have to think about that. But this is definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend it. Charles Bronson does a great job, and he's, to me, iconic. He had so much charisma. He was such a great action star. And I think he should always be elevated up to the very, very top of action movie stars of all time. Right up there with Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, Arnold, Stallone, Willis, all of them. Norris, Van Damme. I think that he's really one of the all-time greats to me. I think he had so much charisma, and he was genuine. He was a real tough guy. You could see it. You could tell. He wouldn't take anything from anybody. I know that. You can see it in the eyes. You can see it in the actions. And Hard Times, he was really in good shape for that. He was in his 50s, and he was throwing those punches like a 25-year-old. So Charles Bronson, somebody that I've always loved. Really, really like his movies quite a bit. And if you haven't seen this and you're an action fan and you like movies about justice, seeking justice, or revenge tales, that kind of thing, you'll like this movie quite a bit, I think. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's more than worth it. This has been the Late Night Review, and please like and subscribe if you like this content. I really enjoy making movies, or making videos about movies that I like. There's a lot of people who make videos and they're doing such hard work. They make videos about movies they don't like because they want to review movies that come out and give it to their audience, and they're performing a great service for everybody. They have to be appreciated. I'm kind of taking the easier way, where I'm making videos about movies that I've always liked, movies that I really enjoy and want to share them with you. So yeah, take care, everybody. And this has been the Late Night Review. Check this one out. It's a great movie, Death Wish 2. Have a good night.